The following live broadcast is rated PG. Parental guidance is suggested. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow Ear Shoulder Voice on YouTube and Facebook, or visit our website at www.earshouldervoice.com.
We've got to work together.
How do you define normal? Well, better yet, how do you define abnormal? One of the things we often assume with people that abnormal is so different from everybody else. But abnormal is not different from everybody else. It's different from our opinion of what normal should be than ourselves. A lot of people view somebody being abnormal as being a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but sometimes it can be difficult to work with. Some people try to steer clear of these people. They don't want to deal with the issues because one thing for sure, the issues can be extremely difficult. But what about the people that don't have a choice? What about all these people that the people we would call abnormal are members of their family, whether they be a husband, a mother, a father, a child? Maybe it's bipolarism, maybe it's autism, maybe it's ADHD, schizophrenia. The list goes on and on. Do you just disregard these people? Of course you don't. Today's topic is going to be called Disorders in the Family. What we're going to be dealing with are how people have dealt with disorders in their own family members, how they get through it, how they manage it. Is it really a tragedy on their life? Does it make it all that difficult? Or do they find a way to deal with it and still move on with their everyday tasks? Don't forget while you're here to like, share, follow, and subscribe to ESV on YouTube and Facebook, where you can get notified of all our live shows. You can engage us live with chat. And not only that, you can suggest topics or even be a guest panelist if you want to. All right, we're going to start the show off right now by bringing in our first guest, and that is going to be our lead host, Nikki Colley. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi, Nikki. What's going on?
Not much. Just another day in my wonderful life.
Well, Days in the Wonderful Life is exactly what we're here to talk about. Some are more difficult than others in some situations. Do you have what is your difficulty? What do you find to be often difficult with your family?
Well, sometimes in my life we have to live with someone who deals with bipolar. And so when you deal with that, sometimes it's like, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes it can be kind of crazy, and in a good way or a bad way. Like, just sometimes it is what it is. We just adapt and make it work.
That's all you can do. It's not like you want to get rid of your family. Who would want to do that anyway?
Right, exactly.
They're the most important people in our lives and the ones we love.
Exactly.
Other people we have in our lives, of course, that we love personally are some of our other friends, our other shoulders, and I'm going to introduce one of them right now. Please welcome Becky Schneider. Becky, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic, Becky. So, Becky, what kind of situations do you think you have that can relate to this topic?
Well, the most prevalent is autism in my son, and it's oh gosh, I hate to say that it's really hard. I really hate to say that, but it is. It's hard to deal with, but you adapt, you learn what to do and how to do it. But I think it's a little bit different than some of the other disorders, possibly because you're constantly, or at least I am, constantly wondering, not only is it hard to figure out what to do, but am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? Am I doing enough? And it's just a never-ending cycle of wow.
Well, I don't think it's ever going to feel like you're doing enough. I think you're always going to think there's more you can do because our human nature is to always be able to fix things that we can't control. So I think as long as that problem exists, you think there's something you can do to fix it. And sometimes there's more something you can do to live with it than fix it.
Right, which is important. That's the important thing, is learning how to live with it.
I'm going to bring in our final panelist right now. She, of course, is one who has a lot of familiarity with this topic. Please welcome Sheena Prince. Sheena, what's going on?
How's it
Sheena.
going? Hi guys.
Hi,
So,
Sheena.
Sheena, you've heard me ask the other two. I need to know, what is your story on this?
I have multiple family members with dementia, bipolar, schizophrenia. I myself have ADHD and a couple other things. And yeah. So I deal with it quite often and at my work.
Okay, well, that's I think you're our one panelist too that also has to deal with it themselves too, and that's going to be good for the show to hear about that. So, we're going to get started with this, and of course, we have a few questions for each one of you. My situation, of course, I've dealt with raising people with ADHD. Just people that were generally slow that had learning disabilities. That's been the ones I've dealt with. Not as strong or severe as yours, but they're all problems that everybody has dealt with or has to deal with sometimes on a regular basis. I want to start with you, Becky, because Becky, you have dealt a lot with the autistic. How many children do you have, Becky?
7.
7 children. So you were
Yes.
busy.
Yeah.
Do they all have the autism? How many are deal with that?
2.
Well, I need to know based on that, and I'm curious actually, how do your other children interact with the children with the autism? How do they handle it?
So we're a blended family. So my husband had 3. I have had 3, and then we have 1 together. So when we blended them, they were fairly young, so it was a very easy transition to blend them. And then Brendan was born, and he's the youngest. He's our son together, and he was very severe. Um, and they they seemed to do very, very well. And I think we were. It was harder on us because we knew what the kids were missing because we couldn't do the things that they wanted to do or that we wanted to do for them. So they have never held it against him. They've never been, jealous or mean. I think it kind of taught them more patience than, you know, than anything else.
Well, I think patience is something you taught them as well. You have to on that. Are they? What is the age of the 2 autistic ones?
So Brendan is 12, and my stepson is, he's a month away from 18, so 17.
Now, is that the oldest and youngest, or oldest and middle?
No. So we have my oldest is 24, and then 22, 22, and then 17, 17, 17, and 12.
Okay, so the youngest. So there's no younger children than the least autistic. Okay,
No.
or sorry, the least age. And Nikki, what about with you? We're gonna get back to Becky in a second. Nikki, you said you deal with the bipolarism a lot. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. My husband was diagnosed a few years back. It's a completely different challenge compared to what Becky deals with, especially the 7 kids alone. Whew, that's a challenge. But it's like mood swings. So it can be like very, very violent, or on the other spectrum, very sort of uh, emotional, or sometimes even reckless. There's different people who suffer from bipolar disorder, and I don't like necessarily saying suffer from it, but who live with it, experience it in different ways. Whether it's I've heard stories of people who, because bipolar is seasonal, is what I'm learning, and some people in their really low points, they go into like this manic state where it's like complete uncontrollable behaviors. You can't stop them like in their track. They get this thought, and it's what it's going to be, and this is what they're going to do, and there's no reasoning whether it's normal, abnormal, or anything in between. They're just on this this warpath almost. I've seen people go on spending sprees, spend not hundreds but thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in this manic state. And then when they come out of that season, out of that sort of manic state, is when they now have to deal with the reality of what happened, in the manic state. Some have lost homes, some have lost cars, some have lost jobs, you know what I mean? Like,
Has that ever been an issue that's affected you?
I mean, yeah, not to an extreme that I've seen on the outsides of my family, but definitely to a point where I mean, we've lost things, we've struggled, we've had tensions in our household. There's been, I mean, it's a challenge. It's a
Yes,
challenge.
it's something that I think a lot of people are constantly challenged with who are dealing with it. They don't know which direction to go. And you're right,
Yeah.
there's a lot of extremes that a lot of people don't have to deal with, and some deal with only the extreme. Now, Sheena, I want to get over to you. You seem really occupied. First, I got to find out what was going on your right, because you were
Uh,
definitely occupied by something.
I was listening, but Jay came in with around the corner, just outside the bedroom, with a laser pointer, and I have two cats on the bed. One's my big boy is right over here, and then I have his twin,
My gosh.
his girlfriend, on the other side, and she loves the
So
laser pointer. So he
even
was
if
going
I
like that on the bed.
even if I didn't remember what you said at the very start, I'd have to assume you have the ADHD as well, correct?
I have ADHD and dyslexia. Stop it! That's just messed up.
So, how is it like dealing with your basic issues since you possess them? Do you ever feel you're treated different? Do you ever feel it's more difficult for you than anybody else?
Yeah, everywhere I go, whenever I have a job, uh, I have to explain to them that I can learn. It's just because of my two fighting disabilities. It's hard to concentrate, and it's also hard to process at the normal speed. And so they're constantly fighting each other. And I tell everyone, I'm like, I learn better if you don't show me how to do it, but if you kind of walk me through it and hands on, muscle memory.
So you said
And
you're also
that's the
dealing
best
with
way.
you said you're dealing with other family members too that have issues. One of them, I believe, is your father or stepfather. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, does your ADHD affect dealing with them at all?
It can, as far as keeping track of what is going on, because he can switch really quick. Some days it's worse than others. Some days he's pretty stable, and there have been several times within a conversation where he went into two or three different uh, topics, and each one
Now,
set him off in a different way.
okay, is it easy dealing? I'm just curious, and if this sounds funny, it's not meant to be. With somebody with ADHD, is it easy to distract them from topics, like just bring something else up and get their attention away from it?
Sometimes, but it all depends on the severity of the ADHD. Like, if they know what you're doing, like it's been done to them before, then they will call you out on it, and sometimes it can actually make their mood worse.
So they in a sense do have some control over what's going on. They do still understand that they are
To a
suffering from
point,
it.
it depends. It all depends on where you're catching them at.
This is pretty much for everybody right now, as far as the panel goes. Do you ever have to deal with other people looking down on you or your family for their issues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that, Nikki?
Other family members, other people who don't understand necessarily the struggle, even sometimes my own children, who, children are children, they don't. Whoa.
I think that's Becky.
What was
She's
that?
got the kids,
Oh,
remember?
Somebody's
Sorry,
cooking.
yeah.
It sounds like somebody's cooking. They don't understand necessarily exactly what's happening. Like sometimes my kids will say to me, well, not recently, but over the years of the real battle, the real struggles we've had, like they question why I stay. Why do I stay and deal with some of the things that I deal with? And my answer to them is because love, like when you love someone and they're your family, our family is not disposable. Now, and family to us, because we are a blended family ourselves, family to us isn't always, within our bloodline. It's family is who we surround ourselves with and, make it that way. So, people are judgmental and people don't understand something they don't know about.
How do you deal with it, though?
I
Do you
mean,
eliminate those people from your life? Do you try
yeah.
to explain it? Do you just pretty much get rid of them?
Well, I mean, it
What?
depends. It depends on at what level that they don't understand. If they're, if they ask, if they question and ask, and how can we make this better, or how can we adapt to it? Sure, I'm not going to cut them out for that. But when you're judging me and you're, putting my family in this other kind of category because we're like damaged goods. Well, then I don't really need you to be part of my misfit community. If I'm that damaged to you, we're worthy of other people's love. So,
Becky, you deal with the kids a lot of times, obviously more than anything.
Mhm.
Do you have to deal with any kind of special treatment from them? Do you have to keep them apart from the other kids or anything, or is it always have they always handled it well? And aside from your own kids, but like kids outside in school and stuff like that.
Oh, it's really tough. Now, the little one is homeschooled. He has been since kindergarten, so he doesn't have a lot of interaction with other kids other than his siblings and the neighbor kids. So they all know what's going on, and his little quirkiness is, they understand it. But we do deal with it when we're out in public, or when he, does come into contact with other kids, and it's hard. It's really hard because there's a battle of, okay, do I step in and play Mama Bear and try to come to his rescue, or do I let him try to figure it out himself and deal with it himself? So, there's always a line there that you don't know. But who I find is worse than other kids are adults, can be more judgmental and harder than kids.
Often they
hmm
can be. Do your two
Yeah.
children know about their own issues, or do they live in the world that their life is just fine?
So the older one, he's kind of just, beginning to understand that he's a little different. Brendan has no idea that he is any different than anybody else,
Does
and that
anybody ever bring it up to him? Like I said, other children or adults, as you were saying.
I have had a discussion with him because he asked me why I had a little it was a puzzle piece on the back of my car, a little magnet with his name on it, and he asked me why. So I explained it to him, and I said, "You have autism," and he said, "Well, what is that?" And I said, "Well, it's just something that makes people think differently." He says, "I don't think differently. I think like Brendan." So that was where we were at with
Thank you,
that.
Tamara.
So
Glad you're
that was
watching.
that was where we were at with that. So he doesn't really understand and comprehend. So at some point he will, I'm sure.
Okay. Now, Sheena, your situation is a little bit different, as I said, because I know that your biggest problem you have is the bipolarism. I'm going to be fair with everybody in this channel. I am least familiar with bipolarism. I know people that have had it, but I've not done a lot of research into it. So I want to learn as much as anybody right now. And Sheena, explain what that's like. And who is this member? Or we know the member of your family, but is he married? How much is he in contact with you?
He is my stepfather, and I
Okay.
talk to him on a regular basis. Not all, every day, but on a pretty regular basis, like throughout the month. I talk to him off and on.
Do you find that difficult to do?
It depends on his mental state, to be honest. It depends on when I'm catching him. If he's having a day, if he's having what I call an episode, because I don't really know, how to term it. It all depends on how he's doing that day. It depends on if it something set him off, and there's no calming him down.
How often do
Uh,
these problems come up? I'm just curious. I hear about everybody with these disorders. How often do you actually have to deal with the disorders? Like, is it something like people who are moody have mood swings once every few days, or is it something that is a constantly going on thing that you have to watch?
it's kind of a constant thing. He can have a good, really, really good couple days, and then another couple days can go by, and they could just be dreadful. He could be
Yeah.
stuck in a rut for almost a whole day,
Does
and
it ever go longer, weeks, months, that you don't feel he's going to get out of it?
well, um, sometimes it can last for a good couple days. But it doesn't generally last more than a few days.
What about you,
It's just
Nikki?
the
I see you
severity of
shaking
it.
your head.
Yeah, I mean, it's had its moments. It lasted a long time, over a month, maybe 2 months. It was kind of induced by other things, kind of a drug induced sort of state of mind. And that's the thing with people with bipolar. There's a lot more people who go misdiagnosed or undiagnosed than actually exist. There's a lot of people who, like many disorders, are high functioning in the community, but there are some people who require medication or self medicate, or they're the extremes of the disorder, where they can have these extreme crazy roller coasters for long periods, like 30, 60, 90 days. I've seen 30 days, 30 to 45 days. It was pretty extreme and really scary. And then there's other times where it's, like I said, seasonal, and maybe certain things might shift the mood. Sometimes we don't know. It can just be just out of the blue, just totally random, unpredicted. That's
Okay.
the scary thing with it, is it's not like something they can control or we can control. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know if today's the good day, if tomorrow's going to be the same, or if it's going to be different. It's kind of like, you get what you get.
Okay, for everybody, you brought up a very good point, Nikki, that I wanted to bring up is people are misdiagnosed all the time. What is your indication, what for anybody on this panel, what is the indication that you got that your child wasn't just moody or parent, he is bipolar. He isn't just, distracted easily, he's got ADHD. Uh, and what did you do when you got the diagnosis? Do you instantly believe? Do you go for other opinions? Have they ever been misdiagnosed before prior to their final diagnosis?
I mean, I can speak. I know for Greg, it took many years. He struggled with depression and other mental health instabilities. It sounds like almost his whole life, and wasn't actually diagnosed with the whole bipolar disorder until his adult years. But leading up to it, it was like a severe manic episode of it wasn't just like reckless abandonment, sort of like it was almost, I can't even describe it, like hallucination mode, if you will. Like he was trying to jump out of a window that was
Okay.
completely closed. It was just,
What about
yeah,
you,
pretty
Becky?
extreme.
What about you, Becky? Because you deal with the kids, obviously, in this situation, and I know kids are often the most misdiagnosed of anybody out there.
Yeah.
How many times did it go through? Did you have to deal with the doctor ever saying one thing when you believed it was something else?
Well, for 3 years, I knew that after he was born that there was some. I had obviously quite a few other children, so I know how babies act and toddlers act. He just didn't act the same way or do the same things, and the doctor kept assuring me that he's fine. You've done this before. Everything's going to be fine. Just keep chugging along. Well, then that doctor retired, and I saw a different doctor, and within 2 minutes, he said he needs to be tested for autism.
Mm.
So then we went through the process and got the diagnosis, and I 100% believed it because that's what I knew in my heart was wrong.
How do you get tested for autism? What is? I know there's so many variations of it. How do you actually get the test?
Well, he was 3. So they did so the parents have to fill out just endless paperwork, and you answer all these questions, and you explain his behaviors, and you answer questions about his behaviors, and you answer questions. So then and you answer questions about everything that is in his life. And then they score it somehow. They have some kind of a scale or a scoring system. And then they spent 2 hours with him and tried to see, how he played with toys because he was young. That's how they did it. So how do you play with this toy? What do you do with this, farm cow? Here's a farm. Where do you put the cow? What do you do? How do you play with it? And he didn't play with toys.
Now,
So
was this the first child that got diagnosed with autism, or the second?
no, no, he was the second. my older one, I wasn't around for a lot of that, and I don't, he's only here every other weekend,
Okay.
so there's not a whole lot of, so I don't have a whole lot of firsthand, knowledge of.
Okay, because I was wondering if there was an assumption thing going on with your second, but obviously not.
No,
If you're with
no.
your first one on there.
I actually went online and did the test. There used to be commercials all over TV. If you have this, if you have this, if you have this, if you see this, then you might have autism. So go to the Autism Speaks website and take this little checklist test.
That's
And I did.
Yeah. Autism Speaks is a great charity to donate to.
Excellent.
This is for Becky as well as anybody else. Do the people with the disorders you're talking about, do they ever get the feeling that you don't love or care about them for those reasons? And how do you deal with it if they do? So nobody does on that. There's never been issues. Even
Yeah,
in the
no.
bipolar and the manic disorders, they don't shout out. Because I've seen this with others where it's been like, it's because you hate me, you don't love me, you never have. You think I'm strange, you think I'm weird. And I've seen it with other people. You are a lucky few if that's the case.
I mean, at his most extreme times, he was pissed off at everybody because he was, like he was in this manic state. They're basically keeping you on lockdown. Once you're hospitalized, like you can't just freely walk around. So, but, and, as they balanced his, his medication and stuff, he became more rational, but never on a regular.
What about you, Sheena?
Like that.
What about you, Sheena?
It's actually kind of the flip side of that. He'll project that he to be a bipolar when he's low, when he's having real lows, he also suffers from depression already, so it makes it worse, and he'll just feel like because he's also diabetic, so it puts it even worse because he'll just not want to be around. He'll not want anyone to be around him. He'll just say, I don't care. I don't want anybody. So it's actually the flip side of it.
Now, what do you feel is the right move in that situation? I mean, do you think it's better to just leave him alone, or do you try to push to say, no, I'm here for you? As far as you handle it, not everybody's the same.
It's more of a just be visually there, and it's like, okay, well, you can't say anything to them. You can't try to talk any sense into them because they're not going to listen.
Do you just wait for them to get out of it?
Basically, basically you just kind of have to make sure that they can know that you're there, they can see you, but you don't want to, interact with them because it might set them off worse than they just got, they just already are in this bad place. And
Right.
You trying to say, I'm here for you, they're not going to care. You have to have them come back to you.
Is there any solutions besides just walking away or saying something? Medication's often used in these situations. Does the medication really help everybody that they've taken on? Or have you ever found medications that they were better being off of or changed with something else?
I'm a big one against pharmaceuticals. I'll scream it from a mountaintop. Greg manages his troubles with marijuana. He smokes a lot of weed, and that just kind of makes him in his happy place. Now, I'm not one to say if a doctor says you need medication, you should stop taking it, but my husband is a very stubborn man, and he doesn't follow doctor's orders. This is probably why he went so long being undiagnosed, because he doesn't go to doctors, like, unless he's dying or bleeding to death or something insane, literally. But, with bipolar, and it's similar to Sheena, he has times, because he suffers from depression too, where he doesn't want nobody around him. He's a very homebody person in general. Keith, you've known him for a long time. He's not a social butterfly, that's for sure. I guess
True.
That's where
Neither is Mike. Oh, he hates.
Yeah.
He hates being out of his house.
That's why
Yeah.
they don't hang
Yeah,
around
his
me.
safe
I've
spot.
learned that.
Yeah.
That's why I have a
that's
hard
That's
time.
his safe space.
Yeah, his is work. My husband would work himself to death because that's where he is comfortable. He's not in his line of work. He's not surrounded by 50 people. He's just got his little happy bubble that he can be, and he's content. And
He doesn't. My
see.
stepdad doesn't even like going grocery shopping because it gets to be too much.
no, he doesn't.
He hates.
he-
He'll stay in the
he's-
car, or
Yeah.
I'll take my mom grocery shopping because he can't handle it, because
Yeah.
it's out of his control, and that's when everything gets like really bad.
yeah.
Well, that I think is also an issue that I deal with. I said I don't have a lot of experience dealing with people with bipolar disorder. More with the autism, but not bipolar by far. And one of the reasons I think that is because I'm such an outgoing person. I control the scenario that I'm in pretty much 90% of the time. It's not something I
Yeah,
try to
you
do.
do.
I just happen to do it. And I think that's why I've never understood truly why these people like are not comfortable. They love me, they want to be around me, but they're not comfortable in most of my situations. Do you think that's something to do with it?
Well, as
Yeah,
an
I'm-
entertainer, that's just your nature.
Yeah.
Someone who has
Well-
to control the flow of the crowd.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just his personality in general. He's a very outgoing, bubbly person for the most part. That's why he's so great at what he does. But that introvert, that person maybe who's insecure, because sometimes, that's what the disorder will do too, is, you doubt yourself. It creates a lot of self-doubt and insecurities. So they don't want to socialize. They just want to, just be the flower on the wall, so to speak.
Okay.
But in the opposite of that manic state, it can either, or during the manic, everybody's different. They can either be that super extreme where they will be the social butterfly. I've heard of people like having, going on like sex capades and like just wanting to have sex with as many people as they can. Literally, like, I had a counselor tell me about it. It's just part of the extremeness of their bipolar.
Okay, we're going to take a small breather here because, as we saw last week, we had a special guest singer on there. Millie King performed a song, and she was actually supposed to perform for this episode, and she pre-recorded the song. We're going to play that in a moment for everybody. Then when we get back, we're going to delve a little bit more into straight the bipolar, the autism, and a little bit of schizophrenia, because I know people dealt with that, and some ADHD. And also we're going to deal with how your everyday lives are different, and you think they would be different otherwise. That's when we get back. But please welcome once again. She can't be here. She did have an issue she had to have taken care of today. Anybody wondering? She's completely doing great. She's already out of the hospital, so that's fantastic. And here is Millie Johnson King.
Hi, I'm Millie, here for ESV, Ear, Shoulder, Voice, a podcast aimed at helping others. Oh, why you look so sad? Tears are in your eyes. Come on and come to me now. Don't be ashamed to cry. Let me see you through, 'cause I've seen the dark side too. When the night falls on you, you don't know what to do. Nothing you confess can make me love you less. I'll stand by you. I'll stand by you. Won't let nobody hurt you. I'll stand by you. So, if you're mad, get mad. Don't hold it all inside. Come on and talk to me now. Hey, what you got to hide? I get angry too. Well, I'm a lot like you. When you're standing at the crossroads and don't know which path to choose, let me come along. 'Cause even if you're wrong, I'll stand by you. I'll stand by you. Won't let nobody hurt you. I'll stand by you. Take me into your darkest hour, and I'll never desert you. I'll stand by you. nobody hurt you, I'll stand by you. Thanks for listening.
Thank
job,
you, Millie.
Millie. Good job.
Millie is actually on watching right now. She couldn't be a
Good
panel.
job, Millie. That sounded amazing.
It was
That was
awesome.
nice.
She said she's recovering at home and doing fantastic. So, a little pain, but she's going to be doing good. She's going to be back with us, too, at some point, because she's amazing on there. While we were away, we had another comment I wanted to get to right now, and that was Gabe. He says the biggest problem for me is finding a doctor to give proper time and care for a diagnosis on medications that work for you versus ones that don't.
Yep.
So, Gabe, I want you to get back what particular situation you've dealt with. Gabe, also, I'm curious, you sound like you have somebody in your family as well that's dealt with that. If you could bring it up real quick, or you want to join, you know where the link is. We'd love to have you on for a second. So, as far as he mentioned with finding the doctors, have you gone through multiple doctors and run into that issue?
We didn't personally, not for Greg. He went through the proper channels. I know for other things, like I was diagnosed with something, not a mental health issue or anything, just COPD. But the doctor, literally, I think he spent 5 minutes with me and was like, "Oh, you've got COPD. You're gonna take this, this, this." Like he prescribed me 5 different freaking things, to which I don't take any. I'm a smoker. Yeah, I got a shitty cough because I'm a smoker. I'll accept that. But other people, normally they should send you to a pulmonologist and you go through breathing tests and you don't just get a 5-minute COPD diagnosis. So doctors are definitely,
Oh, yeah, I went
Obamacare.
in, believe it or not, I went in one time to the hospital, and this is not a mental disorder, but I had an issue going on. They said, "You got gonorrhea," gave me a shot for gonorrhea. I'm like, how the hell do I have gonorrhea? And this time I had been with the same person. I had nothing to change. So I get this shot for gonorrhea. It turns out, 2 days later, my mom went into the hospital and she had the mumps. And that's what I fucking had, was the mumps. I got treated for gonorrhea for having the mumps. It was ridiculous. So you can't always trust what doctors say. Oh, yeah. Yeah, elephantitis big time. It wasn't funny. Yeah, it was not a funny situation. Well, it is now, but it wasn't then.
It is now.
Sheena, you any issues that you had to go through different medications with your stepfather or yourself even?
Well, actually both. They have a hard time with him because his pre-existing conditions. They have a hard time getting the medication dosage right and the types of medication and how they'll mix with each other. And sometimes when he is trying something new, they have to keep him on kind of a watch. And he has to let them know if anything changes. And with today's day and age and the virtual stuff, it makes it harder because he can't go in there and talk to them, and they can't physically see how his body is doing. If he's shaking, because he's got he shakes so bad, he's like his nerves are shot from another disease that he has, which isn't mental. I think I'm not gonna get into that one, but it's a delicate balance, and they have to keep on going up and down, up and down, up and down. Mm-hmm. And he takes 20 something pills a day, and half of them he doesn't actually need, but it's to do with another thing that he has to deal with, that he has to be on these pills.
Even when they find the proper dosage, does that change over time? Do they have to do it again?
They do. They still have to do it again because his status, his health conditions change, the level of care changes, so they have to keep adjusting the dosage.
So Becky, what about with your children? I'm sorry, Becky, what about with your children?
No meds.
No meds. That's good. I know that some do it to try to bring it down, but I guess it depends on the severity of the autism, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When he was when Brennan was younger, I considered it, and then it wasn't something that I wanted to do. So I do very extensive therapies at home with him, and it's been 7 years now that I've been doing them, and he has gotten to the point where he doesn't even know that it's therapy. It's just kind of thrown into his daily routine. I'll do something a certain way, and he'll respond and not even know that it's actually a therapy tool. So he actually is at the point right now where he does not need medication.
Okay, so for myself, and I want to get into the actual diseases themselves for a moment. I don't want to call them diseases, but issues or disorders on a moment. Becky, how do you tell what would be a concern that would make you think your child, spouse, anybody is autistic? What are the signs?
Well, so they have difficulty in social situations because essentially it is a social disorder. And he, when he was younger, wanted no part of anybody. He didn't want anything to touch him. A lot of sensory issues. He still to this day cannot wear a long sleeve shirt or shorts. He does not want to wear shorts. So it's sensory on his skin. He doesn't eat. He's starting. We do food therapy. So he's starting to eat more foods, but he was almost on a feeding tube because he would only drink milk. That was it. And it had to be out of the same cup. So there's certain things that you can tell. He didn't talk. He didn't talk till he was 6.
I know that talking is one of them. I know there's nonverbal. If Lindy was here, Lindy's actually dealing with a lot of situations right now that would be perfect for the show, but unfortunately sometimes you have to put your family first and take care of that. That's why Lindy couldn't be here tonight as well.
Right.
As far as you were saying, and this is a problem I have with understanding autism, and I always have. What makes it autism over germophobia, ADHD? What? Because every time people talk about autistic children or people, they're always describing situations that can be classified as something else.
Well, and with the testing, you have to score a certain way in all of the categories. It can't just be okay. You just have maybe food aversions as opposed to autism, or you don't make eye contact as opposed to autism. You have to score at a certain level according to the doctors in all the categories across the board.
So if you know this or you don't know this, I'm not sure. Is autism more related to you have a group of things, or is the group of things caused by the autism?
I believe that the autism is the main issue, but now a lot of autistic people have seizures, so that sometimes can be something that they use to find out that they have autism. So when they get tested for the seizures, they see the brain. Like Brennan is supposed to get an EEG every year to see if there's been any seizure activity. So when they go in, a lot of
that's
times
common. Then I take it.
Yes.
Okay.
So they go in and they can find out that they've had these seizures, and then they can do testing. Now, there's also a form of autism, Fragile X, that there's a blood test they can do, and they can see if they carry the certain chromosome that causes a certain type of autism, which is Fragile X. So,
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
We'll get to you again in a minute, Gabe.
I have a question about autism because me and my husband recently went to Frankenmuth, and we went to this little store, and my 15-year-old, who I say is like my genius, he's so smart. When he was little, he was obsessed with trains, obsessed. And I had found this wooden puzzle while we were in Frankenmuth for him, because he's all about like Legos and putting things together and making things different from these like Lego sets. He'll change them and make them more efficient. And so I was telling the cashier about how excited I was to get him this gift, and she actually suggested to me, which I was kind of offended. I think the people behind me were offended. She said, "I think your son has autism." And I was like, really? And I didn't wait to hear her reasoning. But it was something, I'm not going to lie, it was something that me and his father had questioned. And I wanted him tested. His dad would not agree. We're not together. So it was usually if I said push, he'd say pull kind of thing. So he was never tested. But there's different functions of autism, correct? There's
Correct.
like high function. They can be very smart. I mean, I don't know much about autism. I'm not going to try to say I do.
well, somebody can also have a trait like your son's obsession with the trains. They can have
Yeah.
they can have a certain trait that can mimic an autistic trait, but without everything else combined, maybe isn't autism. Maybe it's it might be something else, or it could be a high functioning
Yeah.
form.
Like
There
Asperger's is what it
yes,
is.
Is
yes,
it worth
that's the
getting a
highest.
test for that, Becky, with those situations? Do you think it's worth Nikki getting a test?
It depends.
So,
With getting an official diagnosis, at least for autistics, that enables you to receive um, help. You can get help at school. They can get a IEP at school that will allow them certain accommodations that can
Sure.
make school easier for them. It can allow them access to programs that the community has available to help people that have autism. So it really is up to you if you think that they would benefit from a little bit of help or intervention, then absolutely, it's worth it to
Yeah.
get the test.
okay. I want to go to
I do have
Gabe's.
a question for Becky, real quick,
Okay.
before.
Before we do, I want to get Gabe's thing out of the way because I put him up twice, and I want to mention that, and then you can definitely ask your question. One thing he is mentioning here is psychiatrist just prescribed anything she could. She kept trying different things and wanted to get off, and he couldn't until he ended up in the ER. And that's something very important, I think, people understand. First, I want to mention that none of us are doctors. None of us know anything as far as medically trained for this stuff. We just talk about our regular lives and experiences. But if you ever think there's an issue and your doctor won't change medications or they're trying everything and you feel it's wrong, do yourself and your loved one a favor and find another doctor.
Yes.
Get an opinion somewhere else. No matter how much you think you trust your doctor, it's not always the right answer. All right, Sheena, what was your question?
Okay, so I have a friend. I've known him for several years, and he told me that he is diagnosed with autism. I think he's high functioning, but I'm not sure. So the episodes when I've seen him have seizures. I've also seen him spend almost a whole night being stressed out over something to do with his job, and he would bang his head on the wall.
Mhm.
Uh, and he likes to fix things. He's obsessed with fixing things, whether it's phones, his car, whatever. Uh, so my question is I've heard of Asperger's. I don't know what type of autism it is, and then I've heard of high functioning, and I don't know what those two really are as far as being on the autism spectrum.
So the spectrum is so large that they range from high functioning, which is also considered Asperger's, to
Okay.
severe autism. Then they rate it by severity. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's all a part of the spectrum, and people that are able to get by in daily life and do things for themselves, and maybe don't have as many issues as those that are nonverbal, those that are violent or self-harming. There's a lot of the head banging. My son did that, and he has kind of outgrown it, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes when they get a little older, the hormones kick in and they become violent. So, I have a friend of mine, she's had her nose broken by her son 3 times. Um, and, it's just, it's just a spectrum, and there's so many different levels of it that it, it's hard to say where your friend would lie on the spectrum without, a diagnosis from a doctor.
Obviously, autism exists a lot more than we think it does in our everyday lives, especially people that don't deal with it on a regular basis. I'm going to shift a little bit from the autism for a moment because we were talking about a few other things. The same question I asked Becky, I'm going to present to both Nikki and Sheena. What were the circumstances that made your loved ones or you about your loved ones realize that they may be bipolar? How could somebody else? What does somebody else look for besides just being moody? It's that time of the month, whatever it happens to be. That's what people say.
Yeah. So for my experience, because I experienced someone with bipolar outside of my household too. My daughter actually is bipolar. She also has depression issues. But how we recognize sort of, maybe they're having a spike or whatever, it's extreme personality changes. Like you go from happy to sad, or okay to angry, or just little things. But I mean, for Greg, it was more, again, it was a drug induced that just kind of continued. Probably existed and he didn't know it. I didn't know it. It was very extreme, very, very, like almost violent.
You said you didn't know it. Are there situations you think where they don't know it, even in these mood swings?
Sure.
What
Yeah.
would somebody look for in that? I mean, how do they see it? Obviously, most people live with people and go, well, he's just a bitch. He's just an asshole. She's just, whatever you want to call her and stuff. That's what they think. Where is that line?
When I talk about it, I kind of have compared it to like people saying they're walking on eggshells, because that's kind of how it is when you're living in a household that has this, the ability to be up or down. Not always is it that way though, because we have a lot of great days, but there are certain things, bipolar, like autism, it has a very wide spectrum. To people who require medication. Some people, like my husband, who he can manage it. It's self-managing.
That's a huge thing I wanted to get into, and I don't know if you've actually been here for the situation with needing medication. How do you convince your loved one that they need medication without making them feel that you are attacking them?
That's a tough one.
That's a good question.
That's a tough one, especially because I'm one who is not to push pharmaceuticals.
I'm actually not either, believe it or not.
But there are some instances, like my daughter has mood disorder. So she actually suffers from kind of multiple personalities. And in those instances where the chemical imbalance is so extreme, it becomes like self-harming, harming to others. Bipolar is really just, it's an imbalance of your mood. But when you're talking about multiple personalities, you're talking about how Sally doesn't know that Sarah exists, and they coexist in the same body.
Well, that's schizophrenia.
Well, it's a form of schizophrenia, but it's like two people living in the same body. Okay, and so for my daughter, her I don't want to call it her alter ego, but her secondary personality is called Blair. And it's this evil, very absorbed creature who does not care who they hurt around them. And then she could actually have multiples. We don't really know.
Is that bipolar or schizophrenia?
It's literally called multiple personality disorder.
Okay.
She is bipolar. Her father did have schizophrenia, and schizophrenia in her bloodline. She does struggle with drug addiction, but there again, people who suffer from mental health disorders. Oh, bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
A lot of
we needed that break.
Right. People who suffer from mental health disorders a lot of times do seek self-medication because, these drugs that they put them in almost a catatonic state of mind, depending. And when they're trying to figure out dosages and levels and what works with what and what does what, I mean, I've seen my husband, I've seen my daughter, like practically a fucking zombie. Like, they don't know you're there. They're not functioning with you.
Definitely, I raised my nephew, and he has, to a lot of his teenage years, and he was definitely slow and ADHD and all that. And my goal was to get him off the medications they had put him on because he was literally zombified.
Yeah.
Didn't know what was going on. And that's no way to live.
No.
And it's no way to live with the ones who love you either.
No.
Sheena, I'm going to touch really quickly on you as far as your stepfather. You had said, or just like I had asked her, were you around when he was diagnosed? Or has
Uh,
he been diagnosed long before that?
well, I've known him for 15 years, and he wasn't he was diagnosed with schizophrenia before he was diagnosed with bipolar. I think it was the last,
So you can have
I don't know,
both. They
over
don't just
5
group it
years.
into a new one.
Oh yeah, well
Okay.
his bipolar is hereditary. His father had it, and
Okay.
his bipolar seems to be hereditary too, because I think his sister and his daughter have it. So he got it from every end.
Okay. But you weren't around for the actual diagnosis of it, so you didn't have to
No,
tell
my
him he
mom
had needed
was. My
medication.
mom
But your
was.
mom was. I know your mom couldn't be here.
Yeah.
I hope that part, we've talked a lot about the bipolarism, especially because that was actually the topic suggestion presented to us, and we appreciate that. I hope we've helped you out a little bit. But I want to go, the subject is still dealing with it, and we've talked a whole lot about having it. What are your day-to-day lives like? Do you think, I don't want to say do you wish they could be different, because you never want to change being around the ones you love, and you'll love them no matter what. But what are the impact on your day-to-day lives that you probably wouldn't have to go through if it wasn't for these disorders? I want to start with Becky.
Well, I would probably be out working. All my kids would be in school, and I would have a job and able to go about and do things. But I stay home and homeschool, and that's what I need to do because that's what's best for him.
That is. Now, how do you deal with that change in your life, knowing that there could be a difference in it? Obviously, like I said, we wouldn't change it for the world, because we do love our families and the people we care about, and it's worth it to us to do that stuff for them. But how do you deal with the fact that you don't have that type of life? You've got a different life. What gets you through it? What's your anchor?
Well, for it's actually it's my friends, and for a long time it was very difficult. It was very hard. I went through a really rough time, and when I was coming up to the cat all the time, and doing things as much as I could just to be away from the situation. um, and then it just one day I just realized, I can either waste my life away, or I can really dig in and do what needs to be done and help them as much as I can. And it's hard. I don't want to be a teacher. I don't I don't know what I'm doing, but it's
I've met
obviously
your
making,
kids. I think you're doing a great job.
well, thank you. But he's doing well, and that's become my ultimate goal, and it kind of has changed my personal goals from wanting to maybe do something for myself, and that to
So,
wanting to do something to help others.
do you see those changes as in unfortunate or enlightening?
I think it was enlightening. It's definitely made me a less selfish person, where it's not, when I think of my goals now, it's not so much about myself and what's going to make me happy. It's I would be happy if I'm helping others. So
Hey, that was a topic too. We had that too. It
Yeah,
does work
helping
that
other.
way.
Yeah.
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 Sheena, as I asked Becky, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to talk a little bit about your mom for 1 second, if you're willing to do that.
I
Are you
think
willing to
she'll
do
be
that?
okay with it. I think she'll be okay
Okay.
with that.
Because
Since
I
she
know
can't be here.
yeah, she wanted to be. She was unable to make it, and
Oh, she
actually,
really wanted to be here. She really
yeah.
wanted to be here.
What can you tell me about the changes, if you know these, in her day-to-day lives that she either wishes she could have differently? And the same question I pretty much proposed to Becky when dealing with bipolarism.
Well, she speaks about it to me all the time. Well, not all the time, but quite a bit when me and her talk, and we talk all the time. Uh, she has talked about how, she just, because my mom is a retired CNA, she's used to taking care of people. But she said that sometimes it can just be really trying, really, really trying. Like, it really kind of tests her. Uh, but she sticks it through because, she said, I love him. I married him. I'm, this is me. This is who I am. And
So is it more like a duty to her then, or I mean, just the way
um,
it sounds?
sometimes it can be from when I've talked to her about it. Sometimes it can be because but I think it's not. It's a duty, not so much as that it was put on her, but she
Willingly accepted
embraced
it.
it. Yeah,
Yes.
willingly accepted it. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's
So
just how her life is.
So is there anything, does she ever regret that at all? I mean, does she wish there's something? Is that strong enough for anybody on this panel? Is there that strong enough for anybody to ever say, I just can't deal with it anymore?
Never.
And
I
I
think
think
the only
that
thing that
is
she
what people
wishes,
don't realize. You're
my
there for
mom,
your family.
yeah. I mean, she grew up with in a really well. She grew up in a in a difficult household, and when she had her own family, she said, "This is my family. I will take care of them. I'm going to be here. This is my family." That's her. That's how I grew up.
Now,
Your family is your family. You take care of them.
the reason I posed this to you, Sheena, initially was because, like you said, your mom constantly talks to you. How do you help her?
Well, that's I'm 15 minutes away from her. I can be at her house to do what she needs me to do, kind of on call, so to speak. And me and her have had this discussion, and she said, "Yeah, you basically are. When it gets too tough, and my stepdad's just not giving her any slack, and he's just really just having a really bad couple of days, and she needs a break. That's why she has a room. She
So
has her
it's
own
not
room
just
here.
verbal or oral with you talking to her. You actually physically go out, help her do what you can, and stuff like that. And is it ever like
Yeah.
traumatic on you to do those things?
Um, it was at one point because I didn't know what to expect. I'd never dealt with someone that has had his issues, and so it took a little bit of getting used to. And frankly, it did scare me a good couple of times. But when you get around it and you actually learn about it and you realize that it's in his head and he can't do anything about it, and he's not, you're the target.
That is exactly
just be
what is
just just
called a
just be
disorder. It's not their
just
fault.
because he's
It's a
he's
changed
going through
order.
he's going through whatever is, his brain flipped its switch, and
All
you're
right.
just so happen to be in his spotlight,
I don't want
and
this to go
it's
too long.
not
We're running a
particularly
little
you.
short on time, but I do want to get Nikki's opinion as well about her daily changes in life. And the same question I posed to both of them.
You
You're
know,
dealing with it.
I mean, we learned really early on in my marriage with Greg that he was bipolar. So it's just kind of been something that we've adapted to and just kind of
Wait,
gotten
if I
used
can ask
to.
really quick, prior to you getting married to Greg, he was not aware?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
he was not. And we've been married 12 years. I want to say it was like the first year of our marriage that we, went through this portion, call it a test of our marriage, what have you. It is what it is. We've just kind of learned to adapt. Same for my daughter. When you love someone, you adapt to what is around you. Now, there are much harder days than others. There, like Sheena said, her mom is the line of fire. Well, traditionally, so I'm Greg's line of fire, typically. And for the most part, days are easy. There's nothing really to really have to stress over or be worried about with him. He works his tail off, so he comes home and goes to sleep. There's no really in between. But on those days, and it seems to be triggering, it's days that trigger him. Like his mother's birthday who passed away, or his dad's birthday, or his brother's birthday who they've all passed away, or, Father's Day, or it's certain things that just trigger it. And, well, I'm the line of fire. So, you just deal with it. I've learned to deal with it.
Do any of you ever envy someone else's life? Do you ever
Never.
wish that you were there at all? You never have?
Never.
That's good. Now, has anybody ever looked at your life and seen the problem with your spouse, family, or children and looked down on you because of it? Do they think there's something wrong with you? Why do you have 2 autistic children? Have you ever had to deal with that with friends or anything like that? Does it eliminate it?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Becky.
No, I don't feel like I have. Not from anybody that I knew.
Okay. I had somebody who posed a question through Messenger that asked that, and I was just curious about it.
Yeah,
If they
that'd
have.
be
Sometimes
horrible.
I get
Thank God they
people's-
don't.
Sometimes, and I'm
It's
just guilty
instinctual
of this.
sometimes. I don't think it's, and before you continue, I don't think it's intentional when they do that. But some people, it goes back to like the incest theory that your child's going to be messed up because you had incest. Do people look at the parent as being a problem? That's why
I see
their
what you're
child was
saying.
messed up.
I see what you're saying.
And that's, I think, what they were getting at. Go ahead, Sheena.
Okay, so I'm guilty of this too until I kind of had face to face with it, which was my stepdad. The whole bipolar thing, when that started, I was right there with a whole bunch of people that, they're just, extreme mood swings. Everyone gets them. But when you actually really go face to face with the person that is going through this mood swing and you know how they normally are, it clicks. You understand it. And so sometimes I still get that from people that I encounter, whether they're people that just really don't believe in it or people that want to understand it. And they're like, well, what's wrong with him? I'm like, I don't like that term. What's wrong with him? I don't like that term. I just say, well, he's just dealing with something that he can't control. And they still say, well, it's just a way for Big Pharma to get their money. I'm like, okay, you know what? How about you experience it and come back to me?
A lot of people often look at, like the three of you, like Lenny who couldn't be here, like your mother, Sheena, that couldn't be here as well, on that. And they look at them and they think their lives are terrible, their lives are rough, their lives are hard. You're only right with 2 of those. They're rough and hard, but they're not terrible. They're not bad. They're a learning experience. They look down sometimes in what that person posed that question for, and like you had said, Sheena, they think that you are a weaker person, that you're not as strong, that there's something wrong with you is why you pass this down. The truth is, the 3 people on this panel and the millions of people out there dealing with this are the strongest people you'll ever meet. Because they're still going on with their day-to-day lives. They have changed and they've altered the way they've done things. They have made improvements to their lives. They have taken dreams. They have given up dreams to find new avenues of a greater existence. They've become better people. They look at themselves stronger. They help more people around them. And they understand better than anybody who's never dealt with these kind of problems what true love really is and what it's like to have family. Never dismiss people like that. Never act like those people, for some reason, are less than you. In most cases, I think they're greater than any of us. I'm sorry, even the 3 women on this panel right now, I envy you and I admire you in every way. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that you do what you do. I love that you're still strong and you're here sharing everything you can about your situations. You can't find that with everyday people. Most people hide it away if they don't want to share it or they look down on you, and they often do it for the pain they're dealing with at the same time. Mm-hmm. Today's topic was disorders in the family. I hope this enlightened quite a few people out there. This was definitely a deeper topic for us. We see what a lot of people are going through. I hope you see it. But we're going to be a little lighthearted afterwards, because coming up on our next show on Sunday is the video game revolution. And I know it's a guy topic, right? But we like video games. But we're not the only ones. I know Nikki likes some video games too, and I'm sure there's other people out there too. We're going to talk about pretty much the introduction of video games. People who are 40 years old plus definitely remember the early systems. 30 years old definitely saw it be redefined. 20 years old definitely saw the newest generation, and it's impacted them. It's taken them away from their lives of playing outside, doing kick the can, tag, and all that. How the video game revolution has really changed things. Everything from violence in video games to following what people do, giving up to the friends you make, and now with online gaming, it's just a new world that's opened up. We're going to talk about that. Don't forget always to like, share, follow, and subscribe to ESV, Ear, Shoulder, Voice on YouTube and Facebook. Also go to our brand new website at www.earshouldervoice.com. Get updates there, take polls on topics, suggest your own. You can always, when you're viewing, live chat during the show. You can also be a guest panelist if you want to. Just message ESV through Facebook or through our website. So I want to thank you again. Nikki, it has been fantastic having you here.
Yes, Keith, thank you for having me as always.
Always happy to have you here. You're always just so cheery and deep at the same time, and I don't know how you accomplish that. Thank you. And Becky. Becky, it is amazing what you go through, Becky. It is amazing. I keep seeing that board behind you. Does that have to do with your homeschooling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to teach the recorder.
Oh, do you know how to play the recorder?
No.
Okay, well then you're a good candidate for that. I just had to know. On there, Becky, you are so insightful every time you're on here. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Gladly. And Sheena, this was your first topic show, and we're really glad to have you here.
I'm so glad I made it today. No schedule changes.
I know you just started a new job.
Yes, and
So
they changed it 2 weeks in.
You definitely can deal with from a lot of spectrums. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the topics that you're dealing with as well as other people, but we're definitely glad to have you on this. Thank you again for being here, Sheena. Well, you're just fantastic. All right, once again, I am Keith Litfin. Thank you again for joining us. And up at the top we have
Nikki
and
Becky
and
Sheena.
one day we're gonna get these people to do it automatically. Okay, so it's gonna happen, people. I promise. Look for our 10-year anniversary. You were last. You should have caught on by then. Thank you again for joining us. You all take care and have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hi.
They're so deep.
What?
The topics are so deep.
That's
I didn't
Wednesday,
expect
though.
it.
That's
That's
Wednesday,
what
though.
she
I mean,
said.
She wasn't talking about the topics, though.
You
Oh,
that's
you
your
did.
Wednesday, though, Keith. That's. I know that rum shot is gone.
Yeah, so
God,
this is my
God.
second one. I cut away to one of you full screen just so I could refill it.
It's
like,
so
I need
good,
more.
though.
It was
Now,
really
is it bought like
interesting.
that?
Yeah, it's a creamy lemon. I mean, can you?
Is it like at a liquor store that I can maybe look up?
Yeah, I should have. It's a yellow bottle. It says rum chata lemon or something on it.
There's
I
the
saved
hand.
the bottle.
Where's
Is
the
it
hand
so-
during the
yeah,
show? We
that-
could have really
that looks
used it, Greg.
creepy.
He's so creepy.
It's like Stranger Things, man. What the-
It is.
Oh, he can't hear what we're saying either, so he's like,
Oh yeah, because the headphones. Well, he could. He's got to
I'm
go
in
and
the
watch
same
it somewhere. He go to YouTube on the
Yeah.
TV or something and watch
yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah, he could, totally.
He could.
I
He could
just
watch it
realized
live.
I'm in the same boat. It's like I'm talking to myself.
Oh.
I can do that. I can do that.
I got to be honest. I learned a lot this
did
episode that
too.
I didn't know. I really
You know-
appreciate all three of you.
I did too, and I was I wish Linny could have been here. I know Becky, you had some great information about autism. It's horrible, especially when I say that we kind of questioned whether my son had autism, and there's still times where we kind of are like, maybe we should still get him tested. He's super smart. I mean, this kid he's all honors classes. So if he is, he's super high functioning, but there's certain things like he will stay in his room all day. all day long. I have to say, hey, Matthew, how long has it been since you've taken a shower or changed your clothes? Like those simple tasks,
Yeah.
they just are unimportant to him.
I mean, it could be worth a test, just to find out. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I actually learned quite a few things about bipolar from Nikki.
I'm thinking in the future we should probably try to.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do a straight bipolar or autism show, but I think in the future we probably should. Same with schizophrenia and just ADHD. I'm spaced out, but I think we should do something like that because it was hard to get to all the ones I wanted to get because we
Yeah.
spent so much time on each one, which needed to be spent. So I don't think it was wrong. But
It worked out pretty well.
no,
Yeah.
it was really good.
Yeah, it was a good show.
It'll be lighthearted. Okay, Nikki, you do video games. I know that.
I do video games, but I thought you guys had enough people, so I didn't know if you needed me to like step back and give you boys your space to talk games.
We got to wait to find out who we got. I know we got Gabe, and I know we got myself. The rest of the spots
Now,
are
okay,
fully
so
filled.
video games, does that include WoW?
I think Millie might be on because Millie loves video games.
Yeah,
Millie, you're
Millie
invited if you
is
want to be a panel member. We'll talk about video games on Sunday.
Because I know Karen would be great for video games for WoW.
Oh yeah, she played the shit out of WoW for a long time, but she plays a lot of
Yeah.
video games anyway. She
I think
plays
she'd be
like
great for that.
she'd
See,
be
I'm
good
not
for a
much
lot
of
of
a
the video
gamer.
games.
I know, but Jay likes video games when he can. He's obsessed with like car video games. Like
Yeah.
there's one where you like you have to crash things.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
loves that one. And
Well,
then
he
there's
loves
Grand
all
Theft
that. He
Auto.
loves like when all the good ones came out. He was always into that stuff.
It's cut out.
Who's cutting
Yeah,
out?
my
No one.
yeah, it's
I was talking to my husband. He asked why you have the thank you for watching.
Oh, because we're about to cut off from the live.